ब्रोकरेज क्यों देना? नो ब्रोकर है ना?
Welcome back. After Rohit Sharma, Hardik Pandya, Jasprit Bumrah, Dream 11 has more names to add on to their list of endorsers. Dream 11 has come up with a new campaign, Ab Sabkhelenge, with their new ambassadors Amir Khan, R. Madhavan and Sharman Joshi. In a conversation with Storyboard 18's Tasmai Laharoy, Vikrant Mudaliar, Chief Marketing Officer at Dream Sports, talks about the campaign, expectations from IPL and outlook for 2023.
Hello and welcome to Storyboard 18, Vikrant. Glad to have you on the show.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great. So we'll directly start about the exciting new campaign that you have launched. If you can tell us a little more about plans around the campaign.
The unique twist that we have this year is that while we have focused on using cricketers and cricket fans as very integral to our advertising campaigns, there's a unique marriage of cricketers and Bollywood that is happening this time. As you can appreciate, not to use the cliche of how Bollywood and cricket are the two biggest religions in the country, but a little bit of that also in terms of expanding our reach and tapping into new users is happening this year. And we are the campaign this year, in addition to our cricketers, will also feature Amir Khan, Madhavan, and Sharman Joshi, the famous Three Idiots, as you would recall. It's a happy coincidence that there's that little bit of legacy and memories of Three Idiots that the campaign would build on. But it's an interesting twist of how there's fun and banter happens when cricketers meet Bollywood superstars like the three I mentioned, and how Dream 11 is an enabling platform on where, Sabkhelenge, that's what we are talking about.
Talking about IPL, tell us a little bit about your expectations from IPL 2023. And given that this year we have free streaming on Jio Cinemas, that with that kind of amplification, how does it help brands like yours?
Our expectation is that this probably will be one of the biggest IPLs that we've seen. The point about right now, in terms of streaming being available on Jio Cinema versus the matches being available on Star Sports, means that overall we would like to believe there is an incremental reach that happens in expanding the viewership for the tournament per se. We will in all probability partner with both platforms, and that's something that we're evaluating. Anything that helps in getting us incremental reach and also engaging with existing users means that that's a good choice for us.
Sure. And talking of the ecosystem, Vikrant, from where you started the journey of having Dream 11 offerings to being the torchbearer in the industry to coming this long way, it has been quite a journey. So if you can help us understand the evolution of the brand.
It's been an interesting journey for us. You're absolutely right. Dream 11 has been the even if it sounds a bit modest, the torchbearer for the fantasy sports industry. With now 160 million plus users, means that it's not just India's but the world's largest actually fantasy sports platform. If you rewind to even 5 years back or 6 years back, that user base that I refer to, which is 160 million, was a fraction of that. Every successive year, we've seen that growth, not just in terms of our users, but also actively engaged users, as we like to call them, from being, just one or two sports to almost now 12, 13 different sports, in addition to cricket being offered on Dream 11 has happened. I think just as a product and the user experience that we have on the Dream 11 app today is far more sophisticated and far more, engaging for the users than it has been over the last few years. This acceptance or awareness about how fantasy sports, adds that additional layer of excitement and engagement to sport in general. The point I made about, turning passive sports fans into active sports fans means that it's gained large traction across the nation. We are very happy to see that it's over the years, it's no longer just been an urban phenomenon, but in terms of penetration, and our user base is now very well, spread across tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 towns. So it's and what the sports leagues and event organizers repeatedly come back and tell us that they're very happy with the association with Dream 11 because thanks to that engagement with fans has meant that we've had an indirect impact also on increasing engagement and viewership for these tournaments as well.
If you can help us understand your perspective on content and how do brands such as yourself leverage content to amplify reach and engagement with your target audience?
Yes, there is still the role for the good old, television commercial, which gets modified and used for digital platforms as well. But I think social media has had a great role to play in terms of, bite-sized content which engages, which brands come up with and using, different platforms, whether it's Facebook, Insta, or Twitter for that matter. Customizing that kind of content, which we have also started doing. One interesting thing is even for our digital advertising, which till about 4 years back was almost 100% static advertising, has now moved to almost 50 to 70% of even our digital advertising being video based. So coming up with content which is more customized for the digital audience. Duration is a key one, where it needs to be usually short duration. And customizing and personalizing for what goes on television versus what is performance advertising versus what is branded content for social media. So there is a lot of that has gone into figuring out how we need to customize content. The other bit which I referred to earlier is also content just doesn't mean advertising content or brand content, but also the kind of content that we have on in a product or on our app. So there's live scores, there's commentary, there's stats, then there's obviously the leaderboard that we have. So I mean, if somebody was to sample or use the Dream11 app today versus what they used, let's say 4 years back, they would see that richness of content and engagement that they have just on the Dream11 app itself. So I think product content married with brand content, married with, let's say, advertising content has evolved a lot in the last 4 years, and we see only more personalization and customization happening in years to come.
Sure. Lastly, Vikrant, if you can tell us a little bit about your outlook for 2023 in the robust gaming space that we have in India at the moment.
So as enough, industry reports also indicate that the gaming overall in India seems to have reached an inflection point of sorts, in terms of just its growth potential. There's enough data points suggesting that maybe by 2030, this should be close to a $20 billion industry, up from, let's say, the $3 to $4 billion that it currently is. What's been nice to notice is that there are different facets and sub-segments within gaming which are also evolving. So there's fantasy sports, obviously, which Dream11 continues to operate in. But there's the entire Web3 gaming space. There's mid-core gaming, there's mobile gaming, there's console gaming, So I think esports to that extent, a lot of this now has a number of players within the industry. All of them will find their own niche and growth segments. In some of them, Dream11 / Dream Sports, which is our sort of parent entity, might have a direct or an indirect role to play. But overall, I think it's looking very optimistic for the overall gaming ecosystem in that sense.
Great. Thank you so much, Vikrant, for the chat. It has been an amazing session. Thank you so much for joining.
It is time for a short break. On the other side, we are catching up with Prashant Tekwani, Managing Partner, CX India, and Tarun Jha, Chief Executive Officer of Creative India, speaking about their findings from their X Index 2023 report.